ABC News investigation in a place where cameras rarely go, inside the fight against ISIS. This story involves a photojournalist embedded with Iraqi soldiers working with America to take down ISIS. But what this reporter witnessed on the front lines was far from heroic. He saw these U.S. allies torturing and murdering civilians, behavior that's being described as nothing short of sadistic. Here's ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross.
In the fight to destroy ISIS, these elite Iraqi soldiers have been praised by the U.S. as helping to lead the charge. These are the men of what's called the Iraqi Emergency Response Division, the ERD. They're battlefield experts captured in this combat video licensed by ABC News.
They are against ISIS and they are very strong.
The hours of video and still photos are the result of great battlefield courage by this Iraqi photojournalist, Ali Arkadi, who was embedded last year with the Emergency Response Division. But tonight Arkadi is showing another kind of courage, blowing the whistle on soldiers he followed and became friends with. Revealing for the first time graphic scenes of torture and murder of civilians, some too horrific to be broadcast. It all raises the question of whether the U.S. is turning a blind eye.
Was this happening all the time?
This is happening all the time.
Arkadi is an award-winning photojournalist whose work for the respected Agency 7 shows the human side of war. The victims, the orphans, the soldiers.
My name is Ali Arkadi. I'm a photojournalist from Iraq.
Invited to travel with the Emergency Response Division, Arkadi's original idea was to feature these two Iraqi soldiers as heroes, a captain from the Sunni sect of Islam and a corporal from the Shia sect.
So your idea was to show a positive story.
Yep.
People from both sides of the religion working together against ISIS.
Yep.
Arkadi went everywhere, night and day, with the ERD, from Fallujah to Mosul.
As time went by, they began to trust you.
Yeah, I like these people, like personalities, very good guys. It was a very, very good group.
But it was on this night raid outside Mosul last November when Arkadi says he began to realize the soldiers he was following were no heroes. Entering the home of a family, they ignore a crying mother and her children. You're scaring the children, she says. They pull the husband outside and begin to beat him, claiming he and his wife once helped ISIS. And then the soldiers, including Captain Omar Nazar, the Sunni officer who Arkadi was going to focus on for his positive story, forced the captive to repeat a pledge of loyalty to the ISIS leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. According to Arkadi, the captain wanted him to later edit the tape so it would appear the man knew the ISIS pledge without prompting in order to justify killing him.
They knew you had this video.
Yep.
So they knew if it got out, there'd be trouble.
And it got worse. The very next day, Arkadi and his camera were present when the unit methodically prepared to torture this man, a sheep herder, whose teenage sons were suspected of working for ISIS. As a senior officer gives the directions, when I tell you to kick, he says, you let him go. The soldiers close the curtains, but allow Arkadi to continue filming the ugly scene.
It's extremely disturbing.
We showed the footage to Sarah Lee Whitson of Human Rights Watch.
Oh, it's terrible torture, horrible torture. I mean, this is actually happening under command authority. This is someone with some level of authority who has the jurisdiction to tell soldiers what to do, telling his soldiers how to torture this detainee.
Seemingly confident the photojournalist would never expose them.
Not shy at all. In fact, they're smiling. And frankly, there's not even a pretext here of torture in the name of obtaining intelligence. This is just torture for fun.
Sadistic.
Sadistic.
In a statement to ABC News, the Emergency Response Division said the video images are fabrications created by ISIS to make Iraqi soldiers look bad. But later, in a remarkable phone call with ABC News, Captain Nazar admitted the video was real and said he had nothing to apologize for, that he can tell in 10 minutes or less who is and who is not ISIS.
We have made mistakes, but they were all directed towards the enemy, ISIS, and I'm proud of those mistakes.
It's no different than what ISIS does. It's on the same moral equivalency as what they do.
We also showed the video to retired Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann, who served in Iraq and elsewhere as a counterinsurgency advisor and currently helps train U.S. Special Operations officers.
If you're asking me if there's a place for that on the modern battlefield, absolutely not. This is the powder keg for strategic failure. This is the narrative fuel that groups like ISIS look for.
So this is really counterproductive in the fight against ISIS.
It's totally counterproductive.
So the new revealing footage we obtained raises questions of what U.S. military officials know or tolerate. On this night, the torture by the ERD unit of 2 Iraqi brothers was led by a soldier described to Arkady as the unit's liaison with the U.S. military. The torturer himself told Arkady that American soldiers taught him this so-called interrogation technique, applying the point of a knife to a sensitive spot behind the ear. The 2 brothers, one a car salesman, the other who owned a falafel stand, were supposedly under suspicion as ISIS supporters, although Arkady says the soldiers knew they actually had escaped from ISIS.
They're not ISIS.
They're not ISIS.
A few days later, Arkady received this cell phone video from an ERD soldier showing the dead body of one of the brothers who was tortured. On the video, a soldier says, "We took revenge." In our phone call, Captain Nazar said his group has instructions not to take prisoners.
We do not want prisoners from ISIS. I'm telling you, we don't take prisoners.
What should the U.S. reaction to this be? What should the official Pentagon response be to these images which we've sent to them?
Well, it should be reprehension, the same kind of reprehension you and I feel right now. Based on what I've seen here, that can't be allowed to persist. And there should be punishment for anyone that's conducted. This is a violation of law and warfare.
In a statement, the American embassy in Baghdad told ABC News the U.S. has not provided military aid, arms, or assistance to the Emergency Response Division, apparently because of previous human rights violations. Yet the footage we obtained shows ERD soldiers with the very anti-tank weapons the U.S. has been providing to Iraqi forces. And earlier this year, a senior U.S. military official in Baghdad, Colonel Brett Sylvia, publicly praised the ERD in a briefing for reporters back at the Pentagon.
They have proven to be a very effective fighting force. This is the first time that we have advised them, and it has been a really fruitful partnership in all regards.
The 2 soldiers who invited Arkady to follow them, Captain Nazar and Corporal Haider Ali, have developed a kind of folk hero status in Iraq, the subject of a social media video called Happy Baghdad, produced by Arkady. At one point, Arkady became very close with the 2 men. And to his shame, Arkady admitted to us after our interview that he himself, to go along, twice struck captives. But now Arkady has fled Iraq, bringing out his graphic video, in hiding, after he says his family received death threats from the 2 soldiers he once considered friends.
Do you think they would kill you if they could?
Yeah, why not? It's easy.
Will you ever be able to go back to Iraq?
I don't know. Really, I don't know.
Of all the images Arkady showed us, the most disturbing may be one that the soldiers themselves recorded on a phone and sent to him. It shows 2 soldiers chasing down a handcuffed prisoner and then carrying out a brutal field execution.
That's an extrajudicial killing, right? And I don't even have words for it.
That's a murder.
That's a murder.
In our phone call, Captain Nazar told us human rights don't apply to people that he suspects of being ISIS.
He's not human, he's a monster.
But isn't that murder?
No, it's not considered murder.
And is there now going to be an investigation?
I'm already a star, and Ali would make me a bigger star by doing this. Why? Because my country is longing for someone who would help it get rid of terrorism.
The soldiers apparently thought their secrets were safe with Ali Arkadi. Tonight they are learning they were not. For Nightline, Brian Ross, ABC News, New York.
And our thanks to Brian Ross for that report.